If you compare beer with bratwurst,
and cheese with wine,
or even whiskey
with donuts,
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
murder,
conspiracies,
missing persons,
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories.
Here we go. This is Perfectly Paired With, a podcast that we pair a drink with some sort of true crime story. And we invite you guys to drink with us. But if you don't have time for that or you don't do that, that's perfectly fine too. But we have a fun one today. Very excited about this one. It is a story most know. And if you don't, you're probably young. I'm not saying too young to listen to the podcast, but probably much younger than us. And hopefully you'll find out something today that you didn't know before. Katie, my beautiful wife, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So I'm not exactly sure when, but O.J. Simpson once said, "In America, you get as much justice as you can afford." On June 12th, 1994, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were brutally murdered outside Nicole's Brentwood home while her two children slept upstairs. Then on June 17th, 1994, Nicole's ex-husband, father of her children, and former NFL star, O.J. Simpson, was arrested for the crimes. On October 3rd, 1995, at the end of an 8-month trial, O.J. Simpson was acquitted of both murders. 1 year later, the family of murder victim Ronald Goldman sued O.J. Simpson in a civil trial. And at the end of that trial, the jury found O.J. Simpson responsible for the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, awarding the family $33.5 million in damages. Then, in 2007, a hypothetical confession made by O.J. Simpson was published in a book called If I Did It, Confessions of a Killer. Written by Simpson with the help of Pablo Finjaves, a ghostwriter, the book would ultimately be published by the Goldman family. After Simpson's death in April of 2024, the FBI released over 400 pages of documents related to the deaths of Nicole and Ron. This is the story of the kind of justice O.J. Simpson could afford.
Wow. I didn't know the FBI released documents that they hadn't before after O.J. Simpson died.
No, I would say most of them are related to the testing of evidence. I think the FBI did most of the testing.
Yeah.
So it was like page after page, just like evidence testing results. But yeah, it's their kind of policy that once an individual related to the case passes away, they can release documents.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any reason to not release them before?
From examining these documents, I didn't see any reason to not release them unless they were worried about OJ getting upset and filing some legal recourse. But no.
Okay.
This case is so well known. Details are so well known.
Yeah. That's why I thought that was weird that they hadn't released something. Seems pretty well documented.
Kind of what they do.
Gotcha. Well, I think the drink was really easy on this one. I mean, OJ. So
yeah.
What am I going to go with there for that one? Probably the most simple drink in the world. And it's, I mean, outside of just drinking whiskey on the rocks, it's very delicious. And I always forget until I have one.
Yeah.
I don't crave them or anything like that. But when I have one, I'm like, geez, it's just drinking juice.
It is two perfectly paired items.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the orange juice is, I guess, you consider it healthy depending on what kind.
You still haven't said what we're drinking.
I know. I'm letting everybody guess. So we're going with the old Michael Scott drink, Orange Vodka. also known as a screwdriver.
There we go.
Also known as orange juice and vodka.
Yes.
Yeah, so super simple. There's not a whole lot we need to say about this.
Nope.
We can't waste too much time of our listeners.
Just some juice, some orange juice,
Cheers.
some vodka.
And you're supposed to go half and half.
Oh my gosh. Don't go half and half.
Just kidding.
That's just refreshing.
It is. Actually, in a small glass like this, you'd probably get pretty close to half and half. And it still tastes really good.
Yeah.
You aren't overpowered with vodka.
No.
I've actually had very little orange juice in it. And it takes a lot or a very little amount for you to finally start tasting the vodka.
I think the vodka cuts through the sweetness that can be in some orange juices, and it makes it taste like a more natural orange juice, which it absolutely isn't. It's probably worse for you, but it tastes like you're drinking something very natural.
Someone told me vodka was healthy for you, so
He's
I don't know
probably
what
a
you're
Russian.
Oh, Vladimir told me that.
Oh, Putin.
I was just saying Vladimir, just as in general, Russian name.
We're not talking about the president of Russia. So, a drink that is comprised of orange juice and vodka is perfectly paired with a story where our villain not only goes by the nickname OJ, but took on the name The Juice while playing college football and then professional football.
Yes, he did. And he was a very good football player.
I'm going to highlight it a little bit. I don't really want
It's not
to tout his talent, but
that is, I mean, you have to highlight it because it is one of the reasons it was such a...
To understand the story, you have to understand who O.J. Simpson was. O.J. Simpson was.
And the story of like why it was... Well, I mean, we've referenced it. It's like one of the first nationally televised cases where the whole nation
oh my gosh.
was enthralled.
I came across an article that was listing the most like pivotal events in like the last however many years. 9/11 was number 1. Hurricane Katrina was number 2. And the O.J. Simpson trial was like number 3.
That's crazy. I mean, I can't really think of anything that's bigger.
Well, it had a lot of social like ramifications and implications, which we're not going to talk about.
Yeah.
Because we're just going to stick with the crime.
But it was also, it's just a tidbit for the social part of it. The only thing I'll throw in there is he was loved by all communities. It wasn't just black community, it was white community. It was everybody.
Everybody loved the juice.
Everybody loved the juice. He was a phenomenal football player. And also just larger than life personality, actor.
Yeah.
Just was everywhere.
Yes. There's so many things we could talk about, but we're not going to. So I'm going to jump right in. So Nicole Brown was born in Frankfurt, Germany in 1959 to an American serviceman and his German wife. The Brown family, including Nicole's 3 sisters, moved to California when Nicole was just 4 years old. 14 years later, while working as a waitress at the Daisy, which is or was a high-end nightclub in Beverly Hills, Nicole would meet someone who would change the trajectory of her life. Orenthal James Simpson had always hated his name and preferred to be called OJ. During his football playing days, he was nicknamed the Juice. In 1968, OJ won the Heisman Trophy while playing football at USC. Professionally, OJ played for the Buffalo Bills, and he was the very first player to ever rush for more than 2,000 yards in an NFL season. When Nicole met OJ, he was 30 years old to Nicole's 18, and he was married to the mother of his first 3 children. Her name was Marguerite. Together, the couple had a daughter, Arnell, and a son named Jason. And at the moment Nicole met OJ, Marguerite was expecting their 3rd child. OJ would tell Nicole that his marriage to Marguerite was already emotionally over when the two met at the Daisy, But OJ and Marguerite stayed married for another 3 years while OJ and Nicole developed and maintained a romantic relationship.
Wow.
Now, during the...
Was she aware of it?
Yes. Well, I don't know if Marguerite knew.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Nicole absolutely knew.
I'm guessing probably. I'm sure Marguerite... I'm sure there's got to be a certain level in celebrityism that sometimes these people that get married to them, they're like, maybe they have a pass. Like,
I feel like, I don't know if it was true in the 1980s when this kind of started, but I feel like women who marry professional athletes just kind of know and or assume that stuff is happening.
Yeah.
And you trade it for the Ferrari.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
I'm not judging.
Whether it is like a said pass.
You know what?
But there's got to be kind of a, all right, I'll trade this. I won't say anything. It's like, the mafia and Sopranos, they're able to have their, whatever they called their side.
I just know them as side chicks. I don't know what the Sopranos call them.
Fun name in there. Somebody's yelling at their stereo right now. Dude.
Tony Soprano is yelling at their stereo right now.
In heaven.
Now, during that time period, OJ's third child, Erin, who is actually a daughter, actually drowned just before her second birthday.
Oh, geez.
I know. And whether that tragedy contributed to the couple's ultimate divorce or not, OJ would officially divorce Marguerite in 1979.
Jeez.
I know.
I doubt you're going to talk about it because it probably doesn't have much to do with the way you're telling it. I just want to remember, was Jason the one that some people thought
Could
maybe
you
did
just
it?
wait?
Yeah, sorry.
We're going to talk about it.
I didn't think you would.
Oh, no.
Because
we're going to get into it. But let me just tell the story. Now, OJ and Nicole would marry in February of 1985 at his Rockingham mansion. And by 1988, the couple had welcomed 2 children, Sydney and Justin. Now, the couple's marriage was riddled with instances of domestic violence. Nicole had called the police on OJ numerous times, like 8 or 9 times. On one of the occasions, OJ had actually smashed the windows of her Mercedes. There was another occasion which took place on New Year's in 1989. Now, as OJ Simpson recalled this event in his hypothetical confession, If I Did It, earlier on during the evening, Nicole had witnessed OJ's good friend, Marcus Allen, who was a running back for the LA Raiders, give his girlfriend at the time a pair of diamond earrings. Now, that night after the couple returned home, Nicole asked OJ where her diamond earrings were. According to OJ's version, this is his words, his recollection, Nicole was under the impression that OJ had bought a similar pair and assumed that if he wasn't gifting them to her, that he was actually giving them to another female. Then, according to OJ, Nicole attacked him and he simply shoved her out of the bedroom and locked their bedroom door. Now, the truth of the situation is probably something different because when officers arrived on the scene after Nicole made a frantic 911 call, Nicole was discovered in nothing more than a bra and sweatpants hiding in the bushes outside with bruises on her face, documenting OJ's violence from that night. In fact, when Nicole revealed herself to officers, she proclaimed, "He is going to kill me." Huh. Now, despite what responding officers observed, OJ was not arrested immediately, nor was he taken into custody for the safety of Nicole, despite that being the policy and procedure for the LAPD at the time. So Nicole, as was her habit, took pictures of her bruises and cuts and stored them in a safety deposit box along with other similar pictures from other instances, which could potentially be used if something ever happened to her.
Smart.
Now, from that incident, OJ was ultimately charged, and in the end, he pleaded guilty to spousal abuse. Do you want to know what his sentence was?
Yes.
120 hours of community service, 2 years probation, and a whopping $700 fine.
Okay.
Now, Nicole and O.J. Simpson were divorced in 1992. From her divorce settlement, Nicole was given almost $500,000 plus $10,000 a month in child support payments and her Ferrari. But the split was not exactly clean. Nicole would tell friends that O.J. stalked her, which there is evidence of even in his own writing in If I Did It. On one occasion, O.J. describes going to Nicole's house and spying through the window, observing Nicole performing certain sexual acts on a man in the living room, which infuriated O.J. because his kids were, quote, unquote, in the house at the time.
Oh.
But according to O.J., it was actually Nicole who was pursuing him. And just considering they shared 2 children, their paths were irrevocably interconnected. At one point after the divorce, in October of 1993, O.J. Simpson, enraged, visited Nicole, and she would make the following 911 call.
I want emergency. Can you get someone over here now to 325 Gretna Green? He's back. Please. Okay, what does he look like? He's O.J. Simpson. I think you know his record. Can you just send somebody over here? Okay, what is he doing there? He's just drove us again. Somebody over? Okay, wait a minute, what kind of car is he in? He's in a white Bronco, but first of all, he broke the back door down to get in. Okay, wait a minute, what's your name? Nicole Simpson. Okay, is he the sports counter or whatever? Yes. Okay, wait a minute, we're telling the police. What is he doing? Is he threatening you? I'm going nuts. Has he threatened you in any way, or is he just harassing you? You're going to hear him in a minute. He's about to come in again. Okay, just stay on the line. I don't want to stay on the line. You're going to beat the shit out of me. Wait a minute. Just stay on the line so we can know what's going on until the police get there, okay? Okay, Nicole? Uh-huh. Just a moment. Does he have any weapons? I don't know. Okay. He went home like that because they're sleeping and I don't want anything to happen. Okay. Has he hit you today or no? No. Okay. You don't need any paramedics or anything? Uh-uh. Okay. You just wanted to leave my door. He broke the whole back door in. And then he left and he came back? And he came and he tried to knock my upstairs door down, but he pounded it and then he screamed and hollered and they tried to get him out of his bedroom because the kids were sleeping in there. Mm-hmm. And then he wanted somebody in phone number, and I gave him my phone book, and I put my phone book down to write down the phone number that he wanted, and then he took my phone book with all my stuff in it.
Hold on. There's more.
What does he say? Okay. Is there was something I could do? Oh my God, always coming back.
Jeez. OJ, the sportscaster, was he sounded really angry there in the back.
Really angry.
I couldn't tell what he was saying. When you have listened to it, are you able to tell, or have you just read transcripts of it?
So if you find the 911 call on like YouTube or something, they put a transcript, but it just says inaudible yelling. You can't make out a ton.
I heard a bunch of F-bombs, but that was kind of what I could hear. When was that taken?
After the divorce in 1993, like October.
Okay. And from the timeline, what's the timeline from the divorce to the death?
So they got divorced in 1992. She's dead somewhere of 1994.
Okay. So she's probably dealing with stuff like this often because she said, you know, his record, which I'm assuming she's more speaking about. You guys have been here before for the stuff and not his football record. his sportscaster record.
Yes. Yeah. I think law enforcement was aware and familiar with O.J. Simpson and his relationship with Nicole. And I mean, he has a record of pleading guilty to spousal abuse. So what struck me is that she sounded incredibly terrified. And in O.J. Simpson's If I Did It, he completely, obviously, as the abuser, downplays any of his behavior and tries to make her the villain. And if you listen to that recording, there's nothing in it that she's exaggerating his behavior.
No.
You hear it in her voice. You hear it in his voice. I think it captures their relationship a whole lot better than O.J. Simpson did in his confessional.
Yeah. And I mean, just the fact that she said she wouldn't stay on the line.
Yeah.
Because he would beat the shit out of her. There's nothing in her voice that sounds like that's a lie at all. Like, she's scared to stay on the phone with the police, which she's not dumb. She knows all this is being recorded. And so she still doesn't want to take a beating just to have it be recorded.
And I'll tell you this, just to give you a glimpse into OJ's mentality during this time period, as at least he recalled it in 2007, she was being a terrible mom. She was using drugs. She was exposing his kids to all these terrible, awful things. So whatever he was yelling probably represents that mentality. Like, she's not doing her job as a mom and she's putting his kids at risk. And as inaccurate as his impression was, because I truly believe he was a monster, and that's why we're telling the story today, I think he absolutely thought that was the truth.
Have you seen anything in your research that points to any truth to any of those claims by him?
So many years ago, I read the book that was written by one of her good friends. Her name was Faye. I think that she had been with OJ since she was 18. As a newly divorced woman, she was living life. I don't think
18 when
she met OJ. Yeah, she was 18. And so this period of her life was her experiencing adulthood on her own for the very first time.
Yeah.
But every single person who knew Nicole said that she was the best mom in the entire world. Like, she would not have put her kids in harm's way. OJ was really pissed at her, and I think he used the kids as a reason why he was pissed, when really it was his ego and jealousy and things like that.
Interesting.
So, on the morning of June 12th, 1994, Nicole went for a run and then cooked breakfast for her children. Later that morning, while Nicole took Sydney and Justin shopping, OJ played some golf and then played some gin rummy at his country club. This is the day of the murder. It was at that country club that around 2:18 p.m., OJ called Nicole, and according to a club employee, that call deteriorated into a shouting match. That evening, the couple's daughter, Sydney, had a dance recital that was being held at Paul Revere High School. So while Nicole, two of her sisters, and their mother sat together in the audience, OJ sat behind them, completely ignored by Nicole. Now, Nicole had a pretty good reason for her behavior. You see, OJ had been threatening to report Nicole to the IRS for selling a property, but not reporting the sale to the U.S. government. At around 6:30 p.m., after the recital finished, and Nicole had given Sydney some yellow roses, which she had purchased earlier that day for the occasion, Nicole, along with her children and her family, went to eat dinner at an Italian restaurant called Mezzaluna. OJ was not invited to join, so he went on his own way. At dinner, Nicole enjoyed a spinach and cheese rigatoni while drinking a delicious Chianti. And at one point during the meal, Nicole would even admit that when speaking of O.J. Simpson, at dinner, Nicole enjoyed a spinach and cheese rigatoni while drinking a delicious Chianti. And at one point during the meal, Nicole, when speaking of O.J., even stated, quote, "He will always be my soulmate," end quote.
What?
Yes. And as the group left the restaurant, Nicole's mother, Juditha, that's right. Juditha. Yes.
Not Judith.
No.
Not
Juditha.
Agatha.
Correct. Juditha inadvertently dropped a pair of glasses outside the restaurant as she parted from the group to go to her home. From Mezzaluna, Nicole took her 2 children for ice cream, and then they returned back to their house. From Nicole's home, a call was made to the Mezzaluna at 9:15 asking about the missing glasses, which were found.
Sunglasses?
I think they were prescription sunglasses, if I'm recalling correctly. A server who worked there, not the family server from that evening, however, named Ronald Goldman, offered to bring the glasses by after his shift. At 9:50, Ron Goldman left the Mezzaluna with Juditha's glasses tucked safely in a white envelope. He first went home to change out of his uniform, and then he borrowed a car from a friend so that he could drive to Nicole's Brentwood home.
I think he was interested in Nicole or Juditha.
I'm hoping it was Juditha.
Me too.
I don't think so.
He's just, got a weird fetish. Not weird.
No.
A fetish. And it's like telling his homeboy, "Can I please borrow your car?"
That
You should have seen
Juditha.
the tale I saw today. And guess what? Her name is Juditha.
So
how gorgeous is that?
So that night, Ron and a fellow server looked at the reservation book to decide who would take what tables. And Ron noticed Nicole's name and said, "Hey, I don't want to actually take this table because I know them and I think that would be weird." And so a fellow server, a female, was like, "Heck yes, I'll take this table. There's 8 of them." Yeah. And so he clearly knew Nicole Simpson in some way, shape, or form. But nobody could conclusively determine that they had a romantic relationship. But he did go home to change out of his pasta sauce smelling shirt. So who knows?
I mean, she was attractive. And if you know you're going to her house,
why not put your best foot or other appendage forward?
I mean, even if even if you're not, he's probably not expecting anything, but he also don't. It sucks going out and doing things with your restaurant.
It really, really does.
Clothes.
Yeah.
And if you've worked at a restaurant,
especially a seafood restaurant,
sticks to you. Yeah.
Correct.
So, is there any indication what OJ and Nicole fought about on the phone? Their last phone call?
To be honest, I think it had something to do with the incident where he looked through the window. Because I feel like when listening, he makes reference to, "You're doing this in this house with the kids."
He's calling her from the country club talking
about
that.
That's what you're talking about. No.
Because technically, I mean, as far as I know, that's the last phone call, right?
No,
he made to her?
I guarantee you it probably had something to do with her being pissed off at him for him threatening to be like, "Well, I'm going to report you. I'm going to tell the IRS you didn't claim this as a sale."
See, I would have thought it would have been maybe with the kids, with the recital. Maybe he was asking what time it is. And maybe because he's at a country club, he's golfing, playing gin rummy. Because I guess that's what you do at country clubs. I wouldn't know. But he's drinking. I mean, most guys do. Maybe he's not, but he's having a fun time. More than likely drinking as well. And,
Well, we're going to
you've
talk
seen
about
me get
all
to the
the
golf
reasons
course
why
and-
OJ was pissed off at Nicole that night.
I'm guessing he was trying to get out going to the recital.
I don't think.
And she was
I
giving
don't
him
think
shit.
that's the case.
No?
No, and let's talk about it, and when we get to the part where I give you that information, I'll make a very clear note that that's why I think that they argued on the phone.
Perfect.
So, now for a bit, we are going to use OJ's own recollection as described in If I Did It to chronicle what he did after the recital. Now, when OJ left the recital, he was feeling, in his words, quote, pretty lousy. He was mad and resentful at the way Nicole had treated him and at the short skirt that she chose to wear that night. In his mind, when he chose not to invite his then girlfriend Paula to the recital out of respect for Nicole's feelings, he deserved better treatment from her. So perhaps they were arguing over whether or not Paula, which was OJ's current girlfriend, was going to get the invite to the recital. Now, once back at his house, Kato Kalin, who is an actor who lived in one of OJ's guest houses, the one who had originally lived with Nicole as a roommate, came up to OJ carrying a Playboy with the plan of using OJ's jacuzzi, which is just like,
Oh,
thanks for those details, OJ.
wait. Said I'm not following that. So she brought the Playboy.
So OJ's back at his house, and I'm assuming Kato walks up in a bathrobe carrying a Playboy. What's up, OJ?
Oh, okay, got it.
I'm going to use your jacuzzi.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was still thinking about something else, so I was trying to track that
Not
and
Kato
think about this.
using a jacuzzi with a Playboy?
No, but he's the guest house guy. I gotcha.
Yes. Now, again, according to OJ, Kato showed him a picture from inside of the magazine of a girl.
As guys do.
I don't understand that. And this girl reminded OJ of a Raiders cheerleader that he had known many years back, which I would just like to point out. Like, OJ is, in his book, I'm assuming in his life, just like the biggest narcissist. Like, he's going to point out Kato's so pathetic. He's taking a Playboy to a jacuzzi. And
did he point it out? He said something about it?
He writes this. This is the chronicle of his night.
Yeah.
And then he needs to make himself so much better by going, well, that girl reminds me of a professional football cheerleader that I knew. And then he goes on to say that he actually calls this former cheerleader on the telephone to let her know that he was a free man.
Oh, I'm thinking of you.
And this is what OJ writes about in If I Did It. Now, after that call, OJ noticed that he only had $100 bills, and he would need smaller ones for his trip to the airport that night. You see, OJ was supposed to fly to Chicago for a golf tournament connected to the Hertz car rental company, whom OJ worked for as like a spokesperson. Now, OJ decided to ask Kato, I'm hoping after he got out of the jacuzzi, for smaller bills. But then he wound up deciding to just go to McDonald's to break, again using his own words, a C note, which is a $100 bill.
I've never heard that one. C note.
So OJ and Kato, driving OJ's Bentley, went through the drive-thru at McDonald's and returned back to OJ's home around 9:45 p.m. According to OJ, he actually ate his burger on the way home, whereas Kato saved his to eat, presumably when he was back in his guest house. Now, while OJ drove, he found himself, as he described it, in a dark mood, thinking about his daughter and the fact that Nicole never seemed to accommodate him when he would reach out on the spur of the moment, asking to see his kids. Once back at Rockingham, in preparation for his golf trip to Chicago, OJ went into the garage to grab his golf clubs. He then began chipping balls into his neighbor's yard. Now,
maybe they have an understanding, and he was like, hey, anytime you want to, just, give me free golf balls. You can practice by going over the fence.
I'm assuming OJ just thought he had an understanding with everybody that he could just do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, for sure. Which most people did. I mean, look at how the police were around him. Just like, oh, sir, your wife's got some beatings on her face, but
You go back into the house.
We're gonna assume you didn't do those. Yeah. You're good to go. You know, this will be pending further stuff, but don't worry about it tonight, big guy.
The juice. Now, even though golf usually could drive all other thoughts from his mind, OJ still found himself thinking about Nicole. So from his driveway, he decided to call his then girlfriend, Paula, but she wasn't answering his calls, leaving OJ to wonder if she was trying to push him away, or perhaps she had already moved on because she hadn't been invited to the recital. Again, he blamed Nicole. Then OJ describes a series of thoughts that clearly sets up his mental state for the rest of the night. He thought about how he was having trouble walking, thinking about how his knees would eventually need to be replaced, and how he was battling arthritis in his hands. These thoughts then crescendoed into him thinking about his glory days. From there, he thought about his parents' separation and his own relationship with his dad. His mind then circled back to Nicole, recalling what his friend Ron Fishman had told him earlier, that, quote, "We don't even know the half of it," end quote, when referring to Nicole's actions.
What actions?
Again, OJ says she's sleeping with all these guys. She's doing all these drugs. She's just getting up into a mess.
Gotcha. Is he drinking this whole time?
Not that he's describing.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Then at 10:03, specifically, according to OJ's recollection, he noticed an unfamiliar car drive past his house and then park down the street. From this car came a man that OJ had met months earlier and then on a separate occasion had gone clubbing with. This man, OJ simply referred to as Charlie.
See, that's weird. That's where, I mean, obviously he even says like he's making a story, right? Like it's from his point of view. It is actually like if he did. Does he go? He goes into details of if he did, right?
That's what we're doing right now.
No, I just want to make sure he didn't just title it that and then was like, no, I would never do this.
No, I'm telling you what he says.
What actually happened. I saw a guy do this.
Nope, I'm telling you.
We've seen, I mean, if you haven't seen it, go look. You've seen where his house is from the street. It's pretty far back. Like, he's not seeing a guy.
He's in the driveway, though, still.
Oh, he's just standing?
He's chipping balls, calling Paula.
From the driveway?
That's what he says.
Yeah, weird. Okay.
Now,
chipping balls from cement?
I'm just telling you what he says. Now, in If I Did It, OJ makes it clear that what he describes next is quote unquote hypothetical. And this is what OJ confesses, hypothetically, of course. Now, earlier that evening, Charlie had been out to dinner with some friends who had recently gone on a trip to Cabo where they partied with Nicole and her friend Faye. According to Charlie, Nicole had done drugs and drank with these men, as well as gotten to some kinky activities. This outraged OJ, and he decided that he had just enough time to drive over to Nicole's house and, quote, scare the shit out of that girl, end quote. So Charlie and OJ made the 6.7-mile drive from 360 North Rockingham Avenue to 875 South Bundy Drive. The whole way, OJ says that Charlie tried to convince him to turn back and return home. But after lamenting that he had already paid his divorce attorneys over $1 million, that night he had decided that he was going to handle that situation himself. Once in front of Nicole's residence, OJ said he grabbed the blue wool cap and gloves from the Bronco, where he kept them for when he golfed and it was too chilly. Then OJ says he reached under his seat and retrieved a knife that he kept there for those, crazies of Los Angeles. Charlie is said to have knocked the knife from OJ's hand at that point. And then OJ got out of the Bronco and headed towards Nicole's place.
Excuse me if you mentioned it, but did he put gloves on?
He grabbed the wool cap and the gloves.
Wool cap and gloves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, at Nicole's gate, he simply pushed open the gate because it was broken. And he said, I was always telling her to get it fixed.
He probably broke it.
She literally says in the 911 call. I think that was at a different
I thought
place,
it was
though.
a
That was
front
at
door.
And that was at Gretna Green. We're at Bundy right now. And then OJ was standing in the narrow courtyard or passageway between the gate and Nicole's entryway door.
Gotcha.
It was here that he noticed, and this is where I roll my eyes at him, like he could see inside her house, that Nicole had lit candles, but she had, and he could hear music playing. Clearly, according to OJ, Nicole was expecting company.
There's a good amount of steps going up to the.
Yep.
Door. It's not.
Yes.
It's not straight.
There's
in front
no
of him.
way
he
he
has to
could have
look
seen
up and see.
Yes.
Those candles must have been on the windowsill.
Correct.
For him to see.
Now, it was then that Ronald Goldman, who had walked past Charlie as he approached, entered the same courtyard. At his appearance, OJ started asking, "Who the F are you?" Although he said the real word. I just haven't had enough screwdriver to drop the F-bomb.
Let's fix that, folks.
And when Goldman explained about the glasses, OJ simply called him a liar. You see, according to OJ, Goldman referred to the glasses as belonging to Judy, indicating that he knew her not only by her name, Juditha, but by her nickname, which is Judy. Now, after seeing Goldman walk past and enter the courtyard, Charlie, nervous about what was going to happen, carrying OJ's knife, joined the two men outside of Nicole's home so that all three men were standing in this small courtyard area.
So his friend Charlie is carrying the knife for OJ? I mean, he hit it out of his hand, I thought.
He brings it. According to OJ, Charlie's carrying the knife. We're going to talk about it. Then Nicole, wearing a black slinky cocktail dress, as OJ described it, came out of her house. Followed by her dog, which was an Akita, also named Kato.
Oh, we have an Akita.
We do.
They're special to us.
Now, instead of barking at the strange visitor, Ronald Goldman, Kato actually wagged his tail, indicating to OJ that Goldman had been to Nicole's house before and was actually known to the dog.
Which Akitas are incredibly protective of their grounds, and they generally will not wag their tail at somebody they don't know.
Yes. Now, Nicole at this point asked OJ just to leave Goldman alone. To which OJ responded to Goldman, "Are you here delivering drugs?" Because according to OJ, that's what Nicole was doing. And then OJ states that he was attacked by Nicole. In defense of this attack, OJ pushed Nicole and she fell, hitting her head on an outside stoop. Goldman responded, again, according to OJ, by getting into a karate stance and moving about OJ as though he intended to fight.
Yeah.
It was here that Charlie stepped between the two men, and holding OJ's knife, Charlie told OJ it was time for both of them to leave. It was then that OJ recalls removing one of his gloves and taking the knife from Charlie. The next thing OJ describes is thinking that something went terribly wrong. He recalled standing in the courtyard, very confused. He then described reaching towards his heart because it was beating so fast and feeling a wetness on his shirt. Then, realizing that the wetness was blood, OJ looked around and noticed that both Nicole and Ron were lying dead in giant pools of blood, and he was standing there holding a bloody knife. OJ then took off his shoes and bloody clothes and wrapped around the knife in a bundle. Then both OJ and Charlie got back into the Bronco and returned to Rockingham. According to OJ, they were home by 10:37. Once back at Rockingham, OJ asked Charlie to get rid of the bundle full of bloody evidence. In If I Did It, OJ describes what happened afterwards, but we are going to leave OJ's recollections for the rest of the podcast. So the night of the murders at 10:15, I'm going to say this name and I'm going to see if you can recall where I've said it before.
Actually, so let's pause for a second because we're both down on drinks.
Okay.
We'll grab that and then start the second part again.
Okay.
Be right back. All right, we're back. Sorry, just need another drink. All right, and I also wanted to pause you for a second so I could react to. I've never heard what you just told us, and holy shit, that sounds like a confession. To maybe some details are a little bit different than the way they actually happened, but certainly him standing there with no recollection of what just happened. Him, the phrase for that is he saw red. So when you see red, you have no idea, like you black out.
Mm-hmm.
You see red, actions happen, and then you come out of it and you're like, what the fuck did I just do? I guarantee you that's exactly what he did. And that's also, it matches his actions after. Like this, like I know I did it, but I didn't do it. I didn't, like that's not me, but fuck, I fucked myself. I need to get out of here. I wasn't meaning to do that. I didn't think I would actually do that. Boy, that's, I also, oddly, this is going to sound bad.
No.
Kind of felt sorry for him. Like thinking
for OJ?
For thinking of him blacking out and like that, like thinking of putting myself into those emotions that you might feel of like coming out of it and holding a knife and looking around and everybody's dead and you're like, what the fuck? What?
Oh,
no, I didn't do this. And just like realizing so quickly your whole life.
Yes.
You just fucked your whole life over.
So this is getting ahead of ourselves, but I found myself thinking this the entire time I was writing this. OJ Simpson is the poster boy for never give up. Like just stick in it and you might come out a victor and be just fine. Because in that moment, I think that combined with maybe some brain trauma from playing football, which was not, and nobody knew about in 1994. CRT, what is it? No, what is the?
Yeah, it's you saying CRT messed me up.
I'm so sorry. Aaron Hernandez, who was also a football player, brought like this issue to light that these brain traumas can contribute to a lack of like impulse control. And so I think it was that combined with years of feeling invincible and anger at his wife that he absolutely had a moment where he saw red and he blacked out and he did something that he had no recollection of.
Yeah.
And in that moment, he was like, what do I do? And then he just moved on to the next step and then the next step. And like even after the Bronco race where he was like contemplating suicide. Nope, just stick in there, OJ. You're going to be just fine. And he was like the little engine that could.
Yep.
And in the end, he did.
And he did. All right. New perfectly paired with t-shirt. Our first one needs to be like a picture of OJ coming out of the courthouse of free man. And it says, never give up.
Never give up.
And then perfectly paired with on the back.
Yes. But he also, like, I didn't write this into the script, but just thinking back, he was such an asshole when he wrote this book because as he's describing Ron Goldman, who literally was wrong place at wrong time, in his 20s, handsome guy, his whole life ahead of him is like being described as getting into a karate stance. And OJ's like, I just wanted to laugh at him. And I'm just like, dude, even if you didn't kill him, he died. Why would you put that in your book? Yeah,
but still, I
mean, you're such a jerk.
It's like the only case that, well, not the only, it's one of two off the top of my head that like everybody does not accept the verdict. I mean, maybe not everybody. There was probably some folks out there, but once you actually dive into it all and all the details of what went into that court case, it's baffling that he came out a free man. But with that said, I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm going to let you get to the
Okay.
next section. But I did want to reflect on
Yes.
that confession of his. Holy
He even goes
crap.
into how he's driving home and Charlie sitting in the seat with like his head in his hands, just going like, what did you do, OJ? What did you do? And OJ is just screaming at him, like, shut up.
Also-
stop saying words. Stop
also-
talking.
Charlie,
Well, we're in time.
does this dude have his back all the way?
In looking into this, I saw a meme that said, I don't know who Charlie is, but boy can keep a secret.
No kidding.
Okay. So we're leaving OJ's recollections and if I did it, and we're going to move into some of the facts that we can verify.
He probably threw like $4 million in a duffel bag to Charlie and said, don't say shit.
Well, we're going
I'm
to talk
leaving.
about Charlie.
Actually, was Charlie in the Bronco with him?
Yes.
Okay.
So the night of the murders at 10:15, neighbor to Nicole, a man named Pablo Feneves.
Hmm.
Yes, the same man who would eventually be OJ's ghost writer for
Yeah.
If I Did
I
It,
was like, wait, I just heard-
reported hearing cries and barking coming from a dog, which could potentially indicate the time of the attack.
Oh, from the Akita?
Yes.
From Keto? Is that
Kato.
Kato.
We have two Katos. Kato in the jacuzzi and Kato the Akita. Now at 10:25,
Isn't
OJ's
Kato, a servant in some old time show. I swear.
I feel like you're talking about that Pleasure Island or
Yeah.
Dream Island,
Yeah, he's
but I
like
don't think it's Kato.
I think it is. I think it, or no.
All right, pause. We have to look this up.
Yeah, we do. All right, we didn't need to look it up. I figured it out. It's Lone Ranger. Okay.
Yes.
So, Kato, the sidekick. But
Kato
also
the dog,
two people.
Kato in the jacuzzi.
Two people. A dog, a jacuzzi going Playboy looking at
Oh,
fella.
jeez, you're gross, Kato. Then at 10:25, OJ's limo, driven by Alan Park, arrived at OJ's home. Remember, he needed to catch a flight to Chicago.
Right.
At 10:40, Kato Caitlin, post Playboy Jacuzzi and McDonald's deliciousness, he hears 3 loud thumps on the exterior wall of his room. I will mention that in OJ's retelling, he says as he was sneaking back onto the property to avoid the limo driver seeing him show up, those loud thumps were caused by him hitting an AC unit affixed to the outside wall. Now,
Like accidentally hitting
Yeah.
it? Oh.
Yep. Now, between 10:40 and 10:50, Alan Park, the limo driver, buzzed OJ's door several times, but got no response, indicating that maybe OJ Simpson wasn't actually home at the time. Then, shortly before 11 p.m., Park saw a black male, roughly 6 foot tall and weighing about 200 pounds, walk towards the OJ residence. Just then, Kato Kalin, in search of the cause of those 3 thumps, runs into the limo driver out front, and after buzzing the door again, Alan finally got an answer from OJ, in which OJ explained that he had overslept and that he actually was just inside taking a shower. OJ, in his limo, left for the airport at 11:15, and by 11:45 p.m., Simpson was on an American Airlines flight to Chicago. Back near Nicole's home on South Bundy Drive, Nicole's dog, Kato, who had walked through copious amounts of blood, had been found by neighbors, seemingly very agitated with dried blood all over his paws.
I have to ask this just because we have one. What color was
He was
Kato?
white. He was a
Oh,
white Akita.
how precious. In which the blood would show up
Yeah.
like a murder scene.
Yes. Well, Kato led these neighbors back to Nicole's property, where both victims were discovered at around 12:10 a.m. These neighbors obviously then called law enforcement.
Jeez.
When detectives responded to the scene, here is what they found. Nicole Brown, who was 35 years old at the time of her death, was still wearing earrings, a thumb ring, and her watch, indicating that robbery was not the motive for the grisly crime. She was found lying on her left side with her right hand clutching at her throat. Nicole had been stabbed 12 times, and her fatal wound nearly severed her neck. Investigators believed Nicole was attacked first during the crime, as the bottom of her feet were clean. There was no blood on them, indicating that she hadn't walked through any blood from Ron Goldman. She also had no defensive wounds, possibly indicating that the attack had been very quick and it had been a surprise. Ronald Goldman was 25 years old at the time of his death. His body did exhibit defensive wounds. There were scratches and bruises on his face, hands, and his side. A white metal ring was found lying beneath his body, as though the altercation was such that he lost it during the struggle. Goldman's shirt was pulled up his back, and there was a fresh mark in the dirt near the body, as though at some point the attacker, lifting his shirt, grabbing his body, slammed him down into the ground. Judith's glasses were in an envelope nearby. Goldman's,
Did they get broken?
No, I think they survived.
Wow.
Judy's wearing them today.
Probably not. Is she alive?
No, I don't think so. Goldman's body sustained 20 stab wounds.
All right.
Okay.
Can I react right now to that compared to, because
yes, you
I
absolutely
can remember
can.
what OJ
Yes.
said right now?
Go, please.
It kind of still matches up with what OJ was saying. So if he pushes, Nicole, there we go. I almost called it Jessica.
Hey, Jess.
If he pushes Nicole down, she hits her head, knocks her out. This whole altercation between Ron and OJ can happen, and the way OJ sets it up, it does start as just a fight without a knife, which was explain the bruises and the scratches, the maybe picking up, slamming down. And then, I don't know, he looks over at Charlie and goes, "Charlie, knife me." And Charlie throws the knife and catches it in the air, and then he stabs him 20 times.
So investigators kind of had two theories.
But I mean, I doubt Charlie threw him the knife, but he got the knife from Charlie, or Charlie dropped it and ran, said, "Fuck this, I'm out." And then he grabbed the knife after he slams Ron down and just murders the shit out of him.
So investigators really believed that Nicole was attacked first, but her body was left. Ron was attacked next, then the killer came back to finish Nicole. So
my thought was he does all this with Ron, and then Nicole wakes up and sees it, and he's like, "Fuck you, bitch," and kills her.
No. So they really think that he might have been talking to Nicole in a moment, angry, upset, pissed off. He attacks Nicole, and then poor Ron Goldman shows up. He leaves Nicole already bleeding on the ground to handle Ron, and then returns to Nicole for that like final knife slice. And to me, that sort of telling was he went there to kill Nicole because he was really pissed off at Nicole. Ron just happened to interrupt.
Oh, man, that makes sense too.
And they say that because his keys were right next to his body. The glasses were right next to his body. There was no time for any exchange between him and Nicole. Like, "Hey, here's the glasses. Hey, thank you."
Yeah, but the fight before,
I think he tried to take on O.J. Simpson.
But to have bruising and scratches, like OJ, if he had a knife in his hand because he had just knifed his wife.
Yeah.
This is a true knife party, which is a Deftones song and a Drake song. If he had knifed Nicole and then Ron shows up, he still has the knife in his hand. Why then would there be bruising and scratches?
I think that's a really good question. Why wouldn't,
I mean, OJ's giant and he's strong. The only way I think that Ron ends up with bruising and scratches is he's actually like fighting with them.
So you're saying it really matches what OJ recalls.
That's what I'm saying. And then Nicole wakes up, sees sees that he's killed Ron. I don't think she was
asleep because she knew Ron
not
was
asleep,
coming.
but she was knocked out.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because it says
She's
that
found at the
OJ
foot of
says
the-
he pushes her and she hits her head.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
I don't know. I'm curious if the autopsy showed a head wound.
Oh, good question. Not that I saw.
Anyway, I just thought there's a way to make it work
It
with
wasn't
all
me.
that. You don't need to tell them that it wasn't you because it didn't. One of our phones or my
Dinged.
computer dinged, and I don't think it shows up. You might be able to hear it because it came from our headphones, but anyway, that's why she said it wasn't me. So go on.
Okay. So a brown glove was found at the Bundy residence, which is the crime scene, as well as several size 12 Bruno Magli shoe impressions set in the victim's blood. By 5 a.m., 2 detectives, Mark Furman and Philip Van Adder, had arrived at OJ's Rockingham home, and after spotting what appeared to be blood on OJ's Bronco, Furman actually scaled the fence at Rockingham, where he found OJ's eldest child, Arnell, asleep in the guest house. So he's like, there's blood on here. Somebody could be hurt inside. I have to get in there.
What
and
was
he
there
gets
blood
inside.
on? Say that one
The
more time.
Bronco.
The Bronco.
And by 7:30 a.m., Detective Van Adder had declared Rockingham a crime scene and left to get a search warrant. Several pieces of blood evidence were found on and inside OJ's white Bronco and on a pair of socks, which were recovered from OJ's bedroom. In addition to the blood evidence, one bloody brown glove was found on OJ's estate.
Do you ever, when you're going through these stories, especially this one, because I think it every time, just think, OJ, if you just took a little bit more time, like it wouldn't have started the way it did. Now, eventually they would have suspected you and it would have gone that way. But maybe it had to go the way it did for him to get out of it. But he was so stupid with everything he did after.
Yeah, because to me, if
Which
I were
also
him,
explains
I would
if-
just pull my Bronco into my property and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Time got away from me. I had to run a couple errands. To the limo driver, his whole
Yeah.
point in leaving the Bronco out, which in his book, he actually asks Charlie to move the Bronco back onto the property once his limo driver left, which to me is just OJ being like, see, I was smarter than that. I didn't mean to leave my Bronco out.
Yeah.
But he should have just pulled in and been like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're smarter than that. But
Yeah.
when you're not having like whatever amount of adrenaline running through your body because you just murdered 2 people.
Yes.
Yeah, no, the whole thing's so dumb that he does after. Just leaving bloody shit everywhere. Like,
Yes.
like it kind of matches with the book too, though, in the sense that he has no recollection of actually what happened. He
Yeah.
just kind of saw the aftermath and maybe he's really hoping it wasn't him.
Yes.
And he's just going to go about everything normal. Now, if it were me, I'd put 2 and 2 together and right there, I'd be like, yeah, drop me off at the airport. Let's go to Mexico.
Yeah. Now,
wherever you could go. Yeah.
so investigators did call OJ to inform him of the deaths of Nicole and a second victim at her home. And during the trial, an investigator would testify that OJ seemed very upset during this call at the news. But OJ never once asked how Nicole had been killed. OJ returned to Los Angeles and submitted for questioning. Part of this questioning surrounded a cut on his left hand, which OJ explained to the police and in his book as a cut he got from broken glass in his hotel room in Chicago. But OJ had actually provided different explanations for the cut to different people. Once his arrest warrant was issued, OJ agreed to turn himself in, but OJ didn't show up. Then, on June 17th, after a very famous slow police chase of OJ's white Bronco being driven by OJ's friend AC Cowlings, OJ would be brought into custody. But his behavior during this now infamous chase only further suggested OJ's guilt. While traveling in the Bronco, OJ had his passport, a disguise, and $8,750 in cash. He also at times seemed to be threatening to kill himself, holding on to a gun in the backseat. So it's like he's like, I've got these options. And then he just chooses the right one and he sticks it out. And he, in the end, was just fine.
Never give up.
Now, at the trial, prosecutors Marsha Clark and Christopher Darden presented very, very strong physical evidence. For one, a blue knit cap was recovered from the crime scene. Hairs matching OJ's hair were found inside the cap. Also, hairs matching OJ's were removed from Ron Goldman's shirt. Hairs matching OJ's hair and those recovered from Goldman's shirt weren't found anywhere else on items recovered from Nicole's residence, suggesting that they came from the perpetrator of the crime the night it happened as he wore the blue cap. Hair matching Ronald Goldman was recovered from debris taken off the glove, tying the glove to those nights, incidents involving Ronald Goldman.
Is this DNA is now it's pretty new,
it's
right?
So new, nobody understood it.
Got it.
Nylon carpet fibers matching the Ford Bronco were recovered from the glove and from the hat found at the scene of the crime. The blood evidence was even stronger. Blood taken from the steering wheel of the white Bronco belonged to Nicole Brown Simpson. Blood found on the center console in the Bronco belonged to Ron Goldman. OJ's own blood was found on the dashboard of the Bronco, which was presented as coming from a significant cut on his left hand. Nicole's and OJ's blood were discovered on a pair of socks in OJ's bedroom, and the blood on the glove discovered outside OJ's home was determined to belong to Ronald Goldman. Drops of OJ's blood were discovered at the crime scene next to the victims, and a smear of OJ's blood was taken from the gate to Nicole's property. In addition, OJ wore a size 12 shoe, like the prints left at the crime scene. However, during the criminal trial, the prosecution was unable to prove that OJ owned one of the only 299 pairs of the Lorenzo-style Bruno Magli shoes in existence at the time.
Because it's the only thing he was smart enough to get rid of.
Well, just hang on.
Oh, okay.
However, during the civil trial, after claiming he would never have worn those ugly-ass shoes, his words, not mine,
there's a picture of him.
OJ was presented with a picture of himself wearing those shoes at a Bills football game 9 months before the murders.
Oh, funny. It's funny. All right. Obviously, I don't know every detail, but I am telling you, how many things have we watched on OJ? Just it's often we go down like an OJ rabbit hole, in one way or another, but it doesn't matter how many times I've heard it. I still have the same reaction to all the evidence. It's just because the end of the story. You're like, what the But I think you said something very important when I asked you about
nobody
when
understood
did they start
DNA
using
evidence.
DNA. And because this trial took place now.
Just hang on to your horses real quick. Now, the prosecution did a better job with the gloves. Well, at first. The state did provide evidence that Nicole had purchased a pair of those same gloves in 1990 for O.J. Simpson during a shopping trip to Bloomingdale's. But O.J. could afford the best defense team. Some might even call them a dream team. And they were able to create reasonable doubt. For one, it was determined that in 2 of the blood samples recovered, there were traces of something called EDTA. Now, EDTA is an anticoagulant and a preservative added to blood samples.
Okay.
Both OJ's blood on the gate at Bundy and Nicole's blood on a sock from OJ's bedroom contained EDTA. When combined with the fact that the Dream Team was able to successfully present Detective Furman as a racist, it didn't take much to get jurors to conclude that those two pieces of evidence were planted. Yes. Yeah. Now, none of the other blood samples, including Ron Goldman's blood found in the Bronco or on the glove at OJ's residence, contained any EDTA.
Okay.
But
why would they put it? Do you know why they would put it in some samples and not others?
So I tried to look in EDTA to see if it could ever naturally appear. And from what I can conclude, it can't.
So
I think those two pieces were planted, but simply because the LAPD did not think that they could win based on what they had. So they just wanted to make sure. That's my opinion.
Why would one add EDTA to blood? What is the?
It's an anticoagulant. Sure. So blood coagulates. It keeps it stored.
Why would they do it?
No, they're saying that investigators went into, after the crimes were committed, after evidence was gathered, they went into samples already collected.
I gotcha.
Which had the preservative added, and then they placed these pieces of evidence.
You wouldn't add this to not samples, but from evidence or
correct. And if anybody has watched Making a Murderer, EDTA came into play. Because in Making a Murderer, they found blood evidence at the scene of the crime that they hypothesized had been placed by investigators, taken from samples in like an evidence locker.
Do you know, is there ever, I mean, obviously in this case, it looks like there's, outside of those two, there's never a reason to use EDTA in evidence that you're taking of blood on a crime scene or from a scene storage. That is away from the crime scene, and now it's a crime scene because you're finding evidence there of blood. So because with that, they're scraping the blood samples off of whatever it's on, or they've got like a shirt with it.
Right.
And then they're taking blood samples from the victim, from suspect. And those blood samples that they take, that they store, is where they add EDTA.
Correct.
So technically, everything else, they're never adding EDTA.
No.
How the hell wouldn't that be like
more
like any? Okay, so Making Murder. Did he get off because of the EDTA, or no? That's when he went back into jail again, right?
No, that's why they made the entire documentary. Here's the thing.
I'm just trying to.
If you want an explanation for how this entire thing isn't a setup, watch the. It was the drama that Cuba Gooding Jr. played O.J. Simpson. I can't.
O.J. Simpson versus the People.
And there is a scene where Marcia Clark, or the actress who plays her, is at a bar, and she explains how it would not make sense for the LAPD to try to frame O.J. Simpson before the fact that they knew he was guilty.
Yeah.
Because they didn't even know where he was. He could have been out of the state at the time. So them planting evidence to frame him doesn't make sense. And there's enough blood evidence to suggest that he had committed this crime. If evidence was planted, it was just those two samples.
It's a strange thing. It is
strange.
You would think you wouldn't even, no cop would be dumb enough to plant evidence then, if it's got this extra thing to it that no blood actually has. Well,
hopefully now moving forward, they won't be. Now,
also, how many times has EDTA been ignored in cases?
Now, the fact that EDTA wasn't found in all these other blood samples seemed to matter very little to a jury who had not only been sequestered for months on end, creating dislike for the state and the state's team, but who were making decisions in the setting of a racially charged Los Angeles after the Rodney King attacks, which were perpetrated by LAPD officers.
And it was only 3 years before this?
I think it was sooner than that, but don't quote me.
I don't know. For some reason, I was thinking 91.
Then there was the moment that defined the trial. prosecutor, Christopher Darden, decided to have OJ try on the gloves, which had been in evidence storage for months. Then there was the moment that defined the trial. Prosecutor Christopher Darden decided to have OJ try on the gloves, which had been in evidence storage for months. Standing in front of the jurors, OJ seemed to struggle to pull on the extra large size gloves, and that resulted in the defense's effective tagline: "If the gloves don't fit, you must acquit."
You must acquit. I don't know if you've ever tried putting gloves on with your fingers out.
Yes.
It does make it difficult.
I was going to
actually
say.
fit you.
Now, if you watch the video of OJ trying to accomplish this task, it looks like he is literally doing his best bit of acting
Yes.
ever. His fingers are like completely spread out. And others have even hypothesized that he chose not to take his arthritis medication,
Yeah.
which made his hands incredibly swollen.
Right. That makes sense.
But in the end, the jury did exactly what Johnny Cochran said, and they found OJ not guilty of murdering Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. Now, understanding what we do about blood evidence today, most people are 100% confident that OJ was the murderer at Bundy that night. But what isn't readily accepted is whether or not he was alone. And if he wasn't alone, who was Charlie?